Welcome to the Personalities in the Workplace podcast. Each week, Timogi and I are introducing you to an easy-to-understand conversation about personality types. Listen, navigating the different personalities in your business can be a tedious task, and we get it. But we believe that once you understand what drives and stresses those you work with, you can better interact and steer those same people toward productivity and success. In order to help, today we're focusing on our 15th personality type, the INTP, who we call the engineer. As we get started here, I'm going to take a very quick moment to do a little shout out to Sage Garden Care Center, who is sponsoring this episode of Personalities in the Workplace. We would love to work with you. Go check out what we offer and how we can help on our website, www.sagegardencare.org. All right, let's jump into our podcast.
This is Timogi, the Empowerment Specialist, and I have my guest here. Say hi.
Hi, good to see you, as always.
That's Chuck Taylor from Sage Garden Care Center, and we are discussing the Myers-Briggs personality types, and today we're going to dive right into INTP. And Chuck, you have named this personality type the engineer. Talk to me.
Yes. So I am thoroughly fascinated with the INTP. I am not the INTP at all. But this personality type in its truest nature, when working at the best, is great at looking at different angles of a project, of a task, of something that needs to be accomplished, and thoroughly thinking through what needs to be done in order to get us to the end goal of whatever this may be. They're great at pulling together resources, networks of people, of saying, this person needs to be here, this person needs to be doing this job, this task needs to be completed, and here's what we're going for.
So when I hear the word engineer, I think, technical skills and not soft skills. So clarify for me about these INTPs.
Well, I think engineers are drawn, people who are INTPs, who have that preference, are drawn to engineering type of work. So this is the individual that's able to think about all the different aspects of something that needs to go into a project. I mean, you think about an engineer, you think about a person who says, look, here's a problem that we have, here's how we want to solve it. In solving it, we need these resources, we need these tools, we need these components, we need these projects, these people. And so they're constantly thinking about what pieces of the puzzle go together to fix this thing that we're trying to solve.
Wow, so they're very insightful then.
I think so. I think brilliantly, again, when they're working at their best, they tend to be very insightful, very resourceful, able to engage in getting something accomplished.
And I mean, they sound pretty intelligent. I mean, when I hear you describe them.
So again, this is personality type, so it doesn't weigh into account any sort of emotional intelligence or intellectual intelligence or otherwise. But I think by and large, the way that they think, the way that they manifest their personality is going to lead them to being perceived as intelligence. Now, that doesn't take anything away from individuals that are INTP. You may very well be intelligent. But remember, personalities are a huge swath of our society. We always have to leave room for the individuals that have a personality and may not necessarily be intelligent. Oh, dare we say it?
No, don't. We're not going there today. We're going to keep this podcast moving forward. So,
yes.
But they're logical. Is that fair?
I think that's incredibly fair. And when you see that T show up in the personality code, logic is going to be a huge component of the conversation. They are always going to want to use logic in making decisions as opposed to their feeling counterparts that ask the question, how is this going to affect somebody?
Right, because when I hear logic, though, logic to me, in order to use logic, you have to have a certain level of intelligence to follow something all the way through. So when I think about this INTP, this engineer, this, I guess they're solution oriented, huh?
Oftentimes, for sure. Again, so they have that intuitive side of their personality. So they're big picture, they're future thinking. And so they're going, here's the problem, here's what we want the solution to be, here's what we want to accomplish. So what resources, people, components, whatever do we need to pull together to solve that problem?
So that sounds like they know how to adapt.
They do, and here's where they're uniquely different from their INTJ counterparts. And we're going to talk about the INTJs in a future podcast. But the INTPs are the ones who can look at a problem and say, here's what I think we need. And as the problem shifts, moves, changes, adjust, or you know how it is when you go into your car, right? You fix one thing on your car and then something else shows up, right? All of a sudden you're changing what you're doing. I think this is where INTPs have a particular strength, is they're able to adapt and adjust to the situation in order to make it work well.
So as employees, then, these are very flexible.
I think so.
People, you can move them around in the organization from one department to the next, and they're going to make the best of it.
Well, let me qualify that and say,
Sure.
I think they're definitely adaptable, but typically within the project area that they work. So they may have found a very particular skill set that they enjoy, and that's where they're going to work best. You know, I can find an INTP that may be a software engineer. They're great, but they may be horrible in maintenance just because they don't know that skill set. They may not have that area of expertise. But that being said, I think they may enjoy the creativity of changing their work, of looking at different areas, and they would probably be ones that would say, look, my work over here in maintenance helps accentuate the work I'm doing over here in software engineering, programming, etc.
So then they're analytical is what I'm hearing.
Absolutely.
Okay. So they're analyzing the problem, but they're not staying in that analytical state. These INTPs, do they move toward action pretty quickly?
I think so. Well, yes and no. So, so I think they're action focused, right? They want a solution. They want to move forward because that's where their T counterpart is. But because they're perceivers, right, they're going to be ones who are going to walk around a project and ask a whole bunch of questions before they make a decision. They want to be thorough in understanding what the project is before they move. When they have figured out the solution, right? Once they have it, then they're going to act, and they're going to act quickly.
Gotcha. So they're going to spend a lot of time on that thinking phase in order to act, but not just act, but to act properly.
Exactly. We want to take a brief moment here to tell you about Sage Garden Care Center and why we've made this podcast available to you. Every business can optimize productivity by educating their leaders, managers, and employees of their blind spots and pain points. We provide the knowledge and the tools to help you engage your employees to best contribute to the organization's success. We help you leverage their strengths so that you can trust they're helping your organization flourish. As an optimization coach, I help companies nationally and internationally unify their teams, effectively engage conflict, communicate well, and bolster their aptitude for success. Whether you work with a company, a church, an NGO or nonprofit, an education center, or anything else, we have trainings that will help your team. Learn more at sagegardencare.org and look for Chuck's Coaching under the Services tab. Schedule your free consultation appointment today, and we will discuss a plan that fits your budget, your needs, and your goals. All right, let's jump back into our conversation. Act well.
They want to be accurate. Okay, so now let's talk about a few of their stressors.
So there's a couple of things that are stressful to the INTP and stressful about the INTP. So when we're thinking about to them, too much attention, right? They don't want a lot of attention placed on them because they're introverted. They're focused on their unique strengths and qualities, what they bring to the table. And a lot of times they don't want attention to be put on them because they're still trying to figure out what the problem is. They don't want to talk about it until they have figured it out. That makes sense?
Yeah, no. I see that. Kind of like, leave me alone, I'm working. Leave me alone, I'm solving. Leave me alone, I'm analyzing.
Right.
And as soon as I come up with the best information for you,
then I will come down off the mountain and I will tell you my great wisdom that I have found and discovered, and I will share it with you.
Oh, thank you, you INTP, thank you so much.
That's exactly right.
Oh,
so you notice here on the stressors, one of the words that is highlighted in bold is incompetence. And there can be that struggle that they strive so hard to do things well, to do things right, and to have a strong knowledge base for the work that they're doing, that individuals who don't take the time to learn about what needs to be done can either be perceived as incompetent or may actually be incompetent, and they see that as a waste of time. Or can see it as a waste of time. I think one of these statements that is classic in the workplace is, and the time it would take for me to explain to you what to do, I could just do it myself. Right. I think that fits the INTP.
Really?
Absolutely.
Wow.
Right. And that's not inherently a slant on other individuals. It may be it just takes them a while to form the words to be able to explain that, but it may be because they work at such a higher level than others do in their particular area. It's hard to explain.
So talk to me about their ability to delegate then. I'm wondering if they're good delegators.
Well, that's going to be one of the issues. I would say a huge strength of the INTP is being able to work on a project on their own and thinking about it, which means delegating out responsibility can be tough unless the people that they're delegating to understand the work that's being done, understand their role in the work that's being done, and are willing to follow directions seamlessly and easily. Otherwise, what the INTP may find is they become overwhelmed and overworked because they're taking on too much work on their own instead of sharing it with others.
Right. And so if I'm a leader and I have an INTP on my team and I need to give them some constructive feedback, tell me what would be a great way to do that.
Well, I think is to start with the logic, right? Okay, so there's 168 hours in my week. How many hours are in your week?
972.
Exactly right. We all have a fixed amount of time in our week, and to be able to say, look, here's your workload, here's your responsibilities. You do not have the ability to do it all in and of yourself. We have to delegate. Tell me what resources are needed to help you delegate, because if you're not delegating and you're not getting this work done in time frame, you're actually holding us back. So what can we do to help you move forward? Well,
but I'm assuming their argument is going to be it's taking longer than it should, but it's right.
Yeah. And probably they would be correct in saying that, right? It's right. We're doing the work well. We need more time. And I think, again, you bring logic back into the conversation and we say, let's focus on the future and where we're going. How long can you sustain it's right, and this is the way we're doing it at the level that you are, because as the company grows, as our projects grow, we need more people on board. Who you're sharing this knowledge with? Who else do we need on the team? Training starts today. It doesn't start 2 years from now.
And I see one of the stressors that you have listed on these cards is that one of their stressors is rigid guidelines.
Yes. So, and again, there's a little difference here that's subtle between the INTP and the INTJ. And what I like about the INTP is when they look at the work that needs to be done, they want to accomplish a goal and a task. They don't want guidelines because they want the flexibility to assess the problem in front of them. And as the problem changes, they want the freedom to be able to address it the way that they see fit to do it. If that means coming in at 10 a.m. instead of 8 a.m. in order to figure that, they're going to work well in that. If that means pulling in some other resources, if that means pulling in individuals that they wouldn't normally pull in to say, hey, look at this from a different angle, they want the flexibility to do that. And the creativity is going to be super high, and you're going to leverage their strength if you give them that flexibility.
Which I think when I look at this card and I see on one side their strength, is that they are rational.
Yeah, right. Yep.
And then on the other side, their stressor is, rigid guidelines. What if I perceive that almost as contradictory? So explain that for me.
So listen, when we're talking about personalities, we got to remember that we're always talking about the perspective of the individual who has this personality.
Okay.
So what an INTP considers to be rational and what I consider to be rational may not always be the same thing. Okay?
This is not marriage counseling.
Right. Yeah. And so in a workplace, I could very well have a boss, a supervisor, a business owner who says to me, I've given you a lot of flexibility, but the INTP personality says it's not the kind of flexibility that I'm looking for. So you got to start from their perspective and understand where they're coming from, what they value, why it's important, and then work within those confines.
I like that. I do some diversity and inclusion training, and what some people think is diversity versus what other people think is diversity is very, very different.
Yep.
Right.
Yep.
And so one of the stressors that you have on here for the INTP, the engineer, is chit-chat.
Love it. Yes. I got a guy who embodies this personality type well, and whenever I go talk to him, he has deep, meaningful conversations, and we go there immediately. He doesn't get into the how's the weather, how's it, like all that stuff is fluff to him. It doesn't matter. It's, hey, here's my family member that's stressing, that's having a hard time right now. What do you think I should do to help her out? And just jumps right into that. Well, okay, so we go in and we talk about that. That's the issue, because they want to solve a problem and they want information to help them solve the problem. They don't care about the weather. They can find that out for themselves if they need it.
So no sandwich method for this person, right?
I
they don't
think
need
so.
it.
Nope, I don't think so. Criticism, they're perfectly okay with it as long as it's right.
If you're going to call me out, make sure you're calling me out on something that's actually worth calling me out for.
That's exactly right. Or they're going to call you out on being wrong. That's right.
Whoa.
Yeah.
I think that's a good way to end this conversation on the INTP personality type, the engineer. Thank you so much, Chuck.
Absolutely. Thank you for listening to episode 20 of the Personalities in the Workplace podcast. Remember to check out the show notes for stuff to help you with personalities in your workplace. There are these super cool personality cards that we mentioned. Just imagine if everyone in your office had one and you knew what strengths they possess or what stresses them out before you even begin your conversation. You can learn your type by following the link to take your personality assessment. Hey, and invite everyone on your team to take it too. Look in the show notes for more information on Timogi Jackson and me, Chuck Taylor. We would love to work with you one day. Each episode, we are bringing you practical, tangible, and engaging conversations that will help you gain perspective on the people you work with. Join us for our next episode, where we will discuss our final personality type, the entrepreneur, the ENTP personality. Is there something you want to learn about regarding personalities? Send an email to chuck@personalitiesintheworkplace.com. In our next season, I will be interviewing personality types in the workplace. Do you want to be on the show, or do you know someone who would be great for our show? Complete the application in the show notes, and we will follow up with you. Thank you.